Hello, fellow anglers. I'd like to invite you to join me for another day of kayak fishing on Lake Erie.
Today I caught a few walleyes. On the left rod, I'm running a crankbait, and on the right, I've got a worm. With the crankbait, I don't get as many bites, but when I do, it's usually bigger fish. Unfortunately, most of the time it turns out to be a sheep's head. Fishing with a worm is a lot more fun, but most of the time, it's just little ones. I'd also like to share that I've been having some problems with my kayak setup. As you may have noticed, I've got two outriggers at the back on each side. That's my stabilizer. Thanks to it, the waves don't really bother me. Well, within reason, of course.
When the water is calm, I can comfortably cast my spinning rod standing up.
But it's not all smooth sailing. I've got an issue with the way it's mounted to the kayak. Each time, the right side mount ends up barely holding on after a few hours in rough waves. Funny enough, it's never popped out, even though I do get some pretty big waves at times. Each time at home, I end up fiddling with it, and today I actually swapped out the right mount entirely. If this ends up solving my problem, of course I'll share it with you in the video.
And every now and then my line wraps around the propeller, and that's an absolute nightmare.
Winds, waves, and changes in direction constantly mess with my line. Sometimes it goes straight onto the propeller, and once a fish actually bit and pulled my line all the way to the other side of the kayak and wrapped it around the prop too. Now I've decided to use planers, those yellow ones with the little red flag. They're usually used to keep a bunch of trolling rods spread out and separated. But I'm going to use them just to push my two lines as far out to the sides as possible. I've already tried doing this with dipsy divers. You know, they've got that little adjustment dial on the bottom. I twisted it different ways, but unfortunately it just wasn't enough. Of course, you can fish with just one rod, but that's no fun because you can't really experiment with different baits. You probably noticed that I've got a blue spinning rod up front on the right, but unfortunately, on Lake Erie, I just can't really catch anything with it from the kayak. The thing is, to use it properly, you need to stay in one spot. Since my setup is pretty budget, I can't really afford a motor with a GPS anchor. The only thing I can use is a regular anchor. But honestly, up to this day, I haven't caught a single fish here that way. I haven't been using a fish finder for very long, so I'm still not really good at reading it yet. Quite often, I see a ton of fish on the fish finder, but nothing bites. And then when I finally get a bite, I look at the screen and there's nothing there. It feels like some kind of mystery. Of course, I get that it shows what's right under the boat, while my line is out behind me, so the fish could just swim off to the side instead of coming straight back. I also run into depth issues sometimes. Garmin shows 30 feet, I drop a crankbait to 15 and still end up pulling up weeds with shells on them. No idea how that's even possible. It also maps out everywhere I've paddled, but of course I don't go too far from shore. I always keep it in sight. So in the end, my Garmin is basically just a toy. Also, my foot steering system is far from perfect. The pedals move really poorly, and they often get crooked. Unfortunately, I haven't found a better option yet. All the options I've seen so far require hand control, but I need my hands free for fishing. Right now, the battery sits behind my back because the cables just aren't long enough to put it further. I've also got the motor in the back, so the stern is overloaded while the bow is basically empty. But that's probably the smallest problem. I can just move the battery to the bow. As you can see, there are a lot of problems. So I've got two options. Either spend a good chunk of money or do what I'm doing. Give myself some headaches and solve them little by little. The choice is yours. As you've probably figured out, I'm not one to take the easy way out. Besides fishing, I also love cooking. So I'll try to surprise you from time to time with some tasty recipes. I can't wait for salmon season. I've already got trips planned for salmon on the Salmon River, complete with cooking delicious meals outdoors. And of course, Lake Erie steelhead. They're caught really well in all the tributaries of Lake Erie from fall through spring. In today's video, I was just fishing walleye like usual with trolling, so I decided to talk a bit about my plans for the future. In the future, there will be videos about my different rods, and I've got more than 10. Spinning, casting, telescopic, trolling, and ultralight, so plenty to talk about. I also have a fly fishing rod, and I tie my own flies, so there will be some fly tying videos on the channel too. Soon, I plan to tie a few on jig heads for steelhead and salmon. For today, I'm going to wrap up my story. Thank you all for watching, and see you next time.